G'day everyone, welcome back to my weekly tipping video. As always, this preview is brought to you by PlayUp. If you are thinking of having a punt on the NRL this round, make sure it's through PlayUp, guys. But as always, please gamble responsibly. G'day guys, Clarkey here. Welcome back to my tipping preview. This week we'll be looking at week 1 of the NRL finals. It's felt like it's taken ages to get here throughout the year. And I think that was because there was sort of that middle period of the year where we sort of already had the top 4 figured out. And there was only really the 7th or 8th spot left in the competition. So it did seem to drag on a little bit the regular season, but we are finally here. We are at the NRL finals mark, and let's preview and give my tip for each game. So starting off on Friday, guys, we've got the Melbourne Storm taking on the Manly Seagulls. I think if there was a game this round where there was to be an upset, this is probably the most likely. Manly did get relatively close last time they versed the Storm, but they weren't able to beat them. With that being said, guys, I'm going to have to tip the Storm just because we know how good they are when it matters. You know, they start their seasons well in round 1. They finish their seasons well. And when it comes to the finals, they seem to go to a new level. Another level where their defensive structures are just in place so well. The team's effort rises. And it makes them a really, really difficult team to stop. On top of that, you know, this Storm team are going for 2 in a row. That is something Craig Bellamy has wanted for a long time. He's met with All Blacks coaches and asked how they sustain success at such a long standard and level, and he's trying to replicate that. So it will mean a lot to him if he is able to go back to back. But they get a fair few changes throughout their side, whereas realistically, there's not many changes in this Seagulls side. So for the Seagulls, Josh Aloiai moves to starting prop. And that's really the only change I can see in their lineup. Apart from that, Manly look to be pretty much at full strength. For the Storm, we've got George Jennings coming in on the wing and Isaac Lumi because they'll be without Josh Addo-Carr. So that's obviously huge there. Cameron Munster early this week rated himself as a 50-50 chance of playing. I think he'll play. I think if Cameron Munster was to be ruled out, I would want to tip Manly. But overall, I think if Cameron Munster plays, the Melbourne Storm will have enough to get over me. Apart from that, they are pretty much full strength. And I mean, this Storm bench is something else. Nicho Hynes and Harry Grant, 2 of the most talented players in their position. And then Tui Kamakamitha and Nelson Asafa-Solomon are 2 of the biggest props in the NRL. That is a huge bench that could sway momentum in Storm's favour if they do start slow. And therefore, I'm going to tip the Melbourne Storm winning this one by 1 to 12 points. Saturday, 5:40pm at Townsville, the Sydney Roosters take on the Gold Coast Titans. And just looking at this Roosters side, it's probably the best side they've been able to field all season, realistically. I mean, Adam Kieran is in the centres coming off a hat-trick. They've got a veteran like Josh Morris there. Matty Kuvalu and Daniel Tupou are their wings. You know, all throughout this lineup, it is as strong as it gets with Victor Radley and Jarrell Warrior-Hargraves returning. I do think the selection of Sam Walker at 14 is a little bit interesting. But all things considered, guys, look, the Roosters have had a rough year due to injury, not due to form. The Titans, last time they versed the Roosters, were very poor in the first half and awesome in the final 20 minutes. But in the NRL finals, you can't play just 20 minutes. You need to play the full 80. That's something the Roosters know. Although they do have a lot of players out, just going through their lineup, Teddy, Tupou, J Moz, JWH, Takiaho, Crichton, Radley, and Liu. They all have extensive finals experience. They've been there consistently over the past half decade or so. And when I keep that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and tip the Roosters here, guys. I want my Titans to win. I really do. But my head tells me the Roosters should win this one 13+. Later that night in Townsville, guys, at 7:50pm, the Penrith Panthers take on the South Sydney Rabbitohs. I think this will be pretty much a repeat of the last time these 2 teams played. Bunnies will have their moments. They'll score a few points. But overall, the Panthers will be the more consistent and the more enduring team over the 80 minutes, which, you know, they will be spurred on heavily this year by the loss in the grand final last year. When Penrith came into this season, I said anything but a grand final win this year is a failure for the Panthers, and that's how good they are. Now, that's not just my opinion, because this Storm team knows that, and you can tell by the way they've, you know, gone through their business in the regular season, dominated sides, and now we're here at finals. I get the feeling they're ready to go again to another level now that they have last year's experience under their belt. For the Rabbitohs, they get pretty much all their big guns back. They're relatively full strength besides Latrell Mitchell. As I've said a few times now, without Latrell Mitchell, they can't win. Blake Taaffe is a great young player. I think he could be a grade 14 next year and gain his experience that way. You don't want to be gaining your experience at fullback against Nathan Cleary, who is the NRL's best kicker and biggest kicker. He will really, really pressure Rabbitohs with his kicking game, I believe. And whilst Reynolds does have similar abilities with the boot, I can see the Panthers middle led by Moses Leota, James Fisher-Harris getting over the top of the Bunnies middle, and then from there it'll be a task too much for the Rabbitohs to come back. So I'm going to go the Penrith Panthers winning, probably by 13 plus again. We round out finals week 1, guys, at Brown Park at 4:05 p.m. The Parramatta Eels take on the Newcastle Knights. I'm really on the fence for this game. It's a 50-50. Both teams have all their guns returning. For the Eels, it's your Guthos, Dylan Browns, Mitchell Moses, etc. For your Knights, it's your Saifidi brothers, Tyson Frizzell, etc., etc. I do think if the Knights play to the best of their ability, as they have this year, when Kalen Ponga fires, Jake Clifford plays his natural game, as does Mitchell Pearce, and then you look at some of the players they've got coming off their bench, such as David Clemmer and Suaso Su, I do think they can really pack a punch that way. And I do think the Eels will struggle having Ray Stone at hooker. He's certainly not as creative as Joey Lussick, nor is he as creative as Reid Marnie. I think if Joey Lussick or Reid Marnie were here, I'd straight away be tipping the Eels. The fact they're not, I'm really on the fence for this one. Even as I'm talking now, I still don't have my mind decided on who I'm going to tip. So this is probably the first time where I've come in and I've actually got no idea. I'll go the Eels. I'll go the Eels just... the last time they had their big guns, they were able to get over the Melbourne Storm. So I suppose that is a nice little bit of form there to have. And they do have a lot of experience in this side when it comes to finals. I think Regan Campbell-Gillard back is massive as well. He should help, along with Junior Paulo, sort of nullify the effect of the Saifidi brothers who can be so damaging. I want to go the Parramatta Eels by a field goal because I am so on the fence. I'm really not sure how to tip that one, guys. So I'll go the Parramatta Eels by one point. So to recap my tips for the finals week 1, guys, I've got the Melbourne Storm 1-12, Sydney Roosters 13+, Panthers 13+, and Parramatta Eels by 1. So that wraps up my tips for finals week 1, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know in the comments who you are tipping, and I'll see you next week for my finals week 2. I believe it's called the semi-finals tips, and then we'll have the prelims and the grand final. It's finals time. How awesome is it, guys? Can't wait to see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.